This is Hospitality and Politics. I am Andrew Ridgie. This show is powered by the New York City Hospitality Alliance. And today my guest is the chef and restaurateur, David Burke. I have a whole description here of you that was given to me, but I just want to say it's a honor to have you on. We love to talk about the city's restaurant industry, culinary, and all this good stuff. And to have someone that is so a prominent figure and such an incredible history in our industry is just a wonderful way to have a conversation.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to see you.
Thank you. So, can we just talk a little bit about your company right now, like the state of your company, your restaurants in New York? I know you have them elsewhere. What does that look like?
Not easy. Running a company is not easy, especially a restaurant business, a consulting company. But we've got two restaurants in New York. We've got one in White Plains, one in the Garden City Hotel, which is a consulting project at the Garden City Hotel, which is a fabulous property. We've got 4 in New Jersey, and 2 in a town called Lake Park, Florida, which is North Palm Beach, Singer Island area. And we're signing a deal in Kissimmee, Florida for a large property next week. Hotel project and the convention center connected. And that's a couple of years out. And, that's and we do some retail product development, pots and pans work, and help other people with certain projects. But that keeps us busy. We got about 10 properties now. We had up to 15 at one time. A couple in Saudi Arabia and North Carolina. It's just too much.
Yeah,
we're not that large of a corporation, So, and some are consulting deals that expire after 5 years. And like Saudi, we were doing pretty good. It's a lot of work to try and get over there and spend a week there and come back. But the ownership of those particular projects, they had internal issues and they closed them. So but it was a good experience.
You still consider yourself like a chef first? Or where, in your career are you? Are you a restaurateur? Are you running a company?
I always consider myself a chef first. And honestly, I wish I could be in the kitchen more. And be more, be creative and play the piano, as I like to say, because that's where it's, where I started, and that's my comfort zone. That's what I'm really good at. Yeah, managing other people, I'm okay. Yeah, I can help design. I have vision for restaurants and concepts, but it's. The fun is designing dishes and seeing the outcome, and creative and mentoring people and teaching them. When you're running around from 10 different places, you're not really spending enough time in one to, unless it's an opening and you're there for a month or so. And sometimes we get lucky and we hire people that work for me that used to work for me. So there's a comfort zone there. And it's a lot easier because they've already been trained. Yeah. So.
Yeah, no, I know. I mean, I talk to a lot of people and I think, one of the challenges, if you want to call it that, of like success and growth is that you often get taken away of like what first pulled you into the industry, at the beginning, and that you may be most passionate about. And then you're busy, dealing with all these other things. You're like, wait a second, I wish I could be in the kitchen or, menu development.
We're, a lot of chefs are driven, of course, passionate, adrenaline junkies, don't know how to relax. Yeah. And so we're ambitious and we've got big eyes and to us, it's sport. Yeah. Some of it's like a sport. It's like, I can do that. Yeah, well, I can fit that in. Yeah, I think that'll be fun. Yeah, it's not always economics. It's sometimes it's like, what, I'll buy a bakery. I think I can do it.
There you go.
That'll be good.
Sounds like a good idea at first. All right, so we'll go through the journey into the present, but start from River Cafe, which by the way, I'm going. Having dinner this week.
Oh, that's great.
There, I haven't been in years. Wow. So I'm very excited.
It just happened to be. Brad, the chef?
Make
sure I'll give him a call.
Okay.
So Brad and I work together.
Friday night. Fantastic.
We work together at Park Avenue Cafe.
Great.
So River Cafe is my favorite restaurant in the world.
Wow.
Well, still is. And yeah, my 2 kids were born across the street.
Mm-hmm.
So I started there in 1985 working under Charlie Palmer.
Mm-hmm.
I started on my birthday.
Wow.
It was in February. And I remember that because the first day I started, some ex-girlfriend of mine sent me a singing telegram because I left. I moved to New York.
Yeah.
And boy, was that embarrassing on day one.
Way to start.
In front of 40 cooks. It was a bustling kitchen. Charlie was great.
Mm-hmm.
He took over for Larry Forgione.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of pressure. I mean, I was the number 2.
Sure.
I spent about a year there. I went to, I did some work over in France, came back, I took like a couple months off from Charlie and was still his sous chef again. Charlie moved on to open Oriole. Buzzy O'Keefe, the owner, offered me the chef job, which I thought I was too young for at the time. I was 26.
Wow.
That's young.
Yeah.
And especially for that property. And I took it.
Yeah.
And I ran with it. I went to pastry school back to France for a few months. For several months before Charlie gave like a year notice. So then I went to school in Paris, and I came back in late 87 and took over in 87 on December 1st. My son was born November 8th, so 3 weeks old. And then so that was very trying, intense time. So that was 1987 going into 88. And then I ran the River Cafe until 92, 93.
It's such an iconic restaurant, and obviously the view and just the romance of all of it. But like, in your words, how do you explain the River Cafe and describe it to someone as a restaurant? Because it plays a very special role in, New York and just the larger restaurant industry.
Well, the River Cafe back then turned out a lot of great chefs, and it was experimental. It was hard to work there.
Yeah.
I mean, you went in there, you were like going into the Marines.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe not buttoned up like the Marines, but you came in buttoned up and you came out. And you worked. You worked and you brought your own tools. And it was like most of the youngsters that came in became chefs. And that was the goal.
Yeah.
The goal wasn't to be a cook. You came in there to cook at a certain wage to learn and become a chef. And we pushed. We had a smokehouse. We made everything from scratch. And it was great. And I miss it. That camaraderie is hard to find now, because the passion for youngsters that wanted to be chefs back then really wanted to do it for the love of the game and the passion, not necessarily the Instagram and the TV Food Network and being liked by others.
Predates all that.
It predates all that. And you weren't getting rich as a chef then. You were you wanted to be the quarterback of the kitchen, and you wanted to be taught by the best quarterbacks. And so that was an impressive place. Hard to work for, impressive. What I think about when I think about River Cafe, elegance.
Yes.
Old school elegance.
Yeah.
And ambiance.
Yeah.
And food. Food is great. Now, don't forget, you're competing with the best view in the world.
So it is incredible. The bridges in Manhattan. It's just
it's romantic.
Yeah.
You walk in as a piano player. Buzzy does a great job. The service is great. The view is magical.
Well, I have to say, so I have my reservation. I'm going, and it was so nice. I had a phone call from a person, confirming the reservation, reminding me of the dress code.
Wow.
So you still have the proper attire, asking if we had any food allergies, all these things that very, very rarely happen when you book a reservation, and especially the dress code. But I think there's just something, listen, it's not going to work in most places these days, but they're very special occasion type of restaurants. And I think River Cafe can be more that, but it is certainly a special occasion restaurant worth getting dressed up. And
it's nice that they remind you to wear a jacket. I don't know if it's tie included, but I know it's a jacket.
Yeah, no tie anymore.
You know what? It's a respect thing for other diners.
Yes.
And there are a lot of international diners, and there's a lot of well-heeled people and people that are celebrating. And you know what? They want other people to feel like they're there for a reason. It's not a drop-in place.
Yeah.
It is. And the food is great. Bread does a great job.
Yeah.
But you walk out of there and you look behind you.
Yeah.
And you see that city, and you had a great meal. It's just wonderful.
Yeah.
And it's hard to collect hit all those buttons that the River Cafe hits, even if you're on the penthouse level of another building in New York City. When you see a tugboat go by and you're sitting at the window, it's a lover's place.
Yes.
It's romance. It's fine dining. It's elegance. It's special. the view. It's like being in a movie.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, and it's history. New York is one of those places where, fortunately, we still have, notwithstanding all the iconic old school places that you hear close, we still have many of these old school iconic places that, yes, it's the food, service, hospitality, but I think they also play a role in the story and fabric of New York City.
Oh yeah.
In a very special way.
He opened in '77. There was nothing down there.
Yeah.
There was no Dumbo. I was living there when it wasn't called Dumbo.
Yeah.
And I lived in the Eagle Warehouse, and I told my two kids that they named the neighborhood after you guys.
There you go.
But yeah, so I got a special place. That River Cafe is special to me.
That's great. Talking about, kind of the challenge and opportunity of working in the kitchen back in those days. People always talk about, as you're kind of growing through the ranks and working different places, all the things that you learn along the way. Do you recall, were there like one or two things to this day that you really remember that left a lasting impression on who you were as a cook, up to a chef, to today in your career?
Well, the time I was at the River Cafe working with Charlie was wonderful. It was like, I remember Jerry Hayden, who passed away, he said that it was like having Lennon and McCartney in the kitchen together. And that was a nice quote from Jerry. And he was one of the externs there, as well as Don Pintabona, a bunch of other
Don
chefs.
just sent me a note the other day. He's doing some really great work coming up with the 20th anniversary of 9/11 and all the great work that he did, with everyone else, feeding folks.
Yeah.
But anyways, sorry to go off.
But American cuisine, as we know it today, didn't really exist that much in the mid-'80s. You had California stuff going on.
Yeah. And
you had, Larry and Charlie were doing stuff at the River. And then I sort of put my spin on things. And Alfred was at Gotham doing incredible stuff. Four Seasons, when it was the original Four Seasons with, I think his name was Rene. He had a Rainbow Room. We didn't have a lot of great American restaurants. And when I came out of CIA, I was looking for restaurants. If you wanted to cut your chops, you went to a French restaurant.
Yes.
Or maybe an Italian one, but mostly French. They were the highest ranked restaurants were all French. And we had the River Cafe in there and a few others. But the River Cafe, being in Brooklyn, was kind of an outcast a little bit. It was like the pirates on the barge over there. We were kind of wild.
Yeah, so. The other side of the river.
And you had Boulay open, and 1985 is when Le Bernardin opened. Wow. So there was a lot of interesting stuff going on, and you lived and died by the reviews. Yeah. And you worked hard to get them, and in order to shine, you had to really make a difference. Yeah. You had to make noise because people had to hear about you through your peers, and maybe a review, maybe it was a gourmet magazine, maybe Food and Wine. The Beard House, to be invited to cook the Beard House was a big deal. Yeah. That was like, wow, I got picked. You went and did it, and that's how you got recognized. Yeah. And things have changed greatly from exposure standpoint since those days, for sure. Yeah. So you tried like hell to make your stuff great, and if you were daring, and I was, you went outside the box, and you tried to. I had to compete with a view. Yeah, I remember.
That's true.
Jean-Jacques Rachou came in. He was the chef of the Côte Basque, owner, with a guy named Jean Bonchet who had the best restaurant in America at the time. And they actually turned the table around and didn't want to look outside. And they said, "We're here to respect the food." And it was amazing.
Wow,
it was amazing. They were like, we want to we want to compliment the show. We're here to look. We want to see.
That's
what he's
a sign of respect, huh? Wow.
So I used to have a file index cards of all the menus I used to. We started. The first time we did tasting menus was there. We had no micros either. Everything was handwritten checks. So you had to, you expedited them. It was like, we had a lot of runners, and back then, at one point when I started with Charlie, all the plates were the same size with the metal lids. Maybe that was for lunch or brunch. I forget if it was. So we kind of shifted to, you got to remember, chefs didn't get to buy their own plates. Yeah. And so we started getting oval plates and deep bowls and Villeroy and Bosch and different size. So the lids went out. Yeah. So now all of a sudden a waiter couldn't carry 12 plates. They hated it. Yeah. Because now, and you had to move fast because you didn't have lids. Yeah. You don't want to compromise the quality of food. So, And that's, so we started buying China. Art culinary played a big role in getting exposure for chefs, and Food Arts was another great magazine. And we just kept pushing and pushing. And I think if you understand the fundamentals of cooking and the basics of classic cuisine, you can put together creative dishes that make sense. And that's what we tried to do.
What are there things today in your restaurants that you learned during those River Cafe days? Because like the industry obviously, has evolved in so many different ways, but there's core fundamentals, it's still food, service, hospitality. But are there any things that you learned back in those days that you still try to make sure present in the restaurants today?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the fundamentals are always important. We had a can-do attitude, and we did everything from scratch. It's unaffordable sometimes to do that now, and doesn't make as much sense, like to bring in as many. And we don't have the kitchen space. There was a big kitchen there.
Yeah.
We don't build kitchens that big with stock pots and this and that. And we, you don't need to bring in hundreds of pounds of veal bones every week to make stocks. But that was, and we had a smoker in the back, and we had a chocolate shop, and we made chocolate Burke and Bridges, and we had a dessert menu that had 18 desserts on it.
Wow.
9 of them with chocolate. So because I just got out of pastry school, so I went there. I was like, you know what, let's go.
The chocolate time.
And we had chocolates to go and bonbons, and I brought a pastry chef back who I met in school there, and he was fabulous. And so we had an edge on that. It's because creativity in pastry is always allowed, because people don't they don't knock it. Because it can be cute, it can be whimsical, it can be this and that. With main dishes, not as much. And appetizers, you have a little bit of freedom, but we were knocking things out. And but I think that one of the things that I don't see as much, it's harder to get, is the camaraderie and helping each other in the kitchen, where everyone's in it as a team. Not as individualism, where they think this is my station, I only have to worry about this.
Why do you think that's changed?
Well, I think it's the way people are trained in other places. I think the chain restaurants do that. I think that other places do that. I think that there's people want more structure and routine as opposed to, and I don't think there was more aggressive staff back there that wanted to learn now. Like, I want to learn today.
Yeah.
I don't want to wait.
Yeah.
I don't want to I'm coming in early and I'm staying late, and I want to learn. I don't see that as much, and again, the laws have changed.
Yeah.
So if somebody does come in early and you don't pay them, they can sue you.
Yeah.
So you got to watch all these different things. And so things have changed a lot in that respect. Nobody got sued back then.
Yeah.
There was no HR. We didn't know how to spell HR,
Yeah. Talk about mentorship, though, because you mentioned a little bit earlier, and I hear that so much, in the industry. I think especially to some of the trades, when you talk about like old school chefs or just older school people that are in the industry versus, the new guard that's coming in. And then the pandemic obviously changed a lot of workforce things and immigration. I feel like when it comes to HR, just like restaurant workforce, it's always kind of evolving and changing. But one thing that I hear from so many people is like the importance of mentorship. How do you approach that? Like, did you have any really strong mentors when you were coming up? And today, like, how do you view mentorship and your role, if at any role, mentoring?
Well, when I was in high school, I had a couple of mentors. They helped me get into college and showed me the correct way of doing things. And that's really what you want from a mentor. You want to know why you do something. Waldy Malouf was huge for me. And Waldy and I worked together upstate New York. When I graduated CIA, I went to Norway and worked in a wealthy home for a few months. But that got me to Europe to travel and all that. I worked with Waldy when I get back at La Cremaillère, a restaurant up in Bedford in Westchester, and I got to work side by side with him for a couple of years, like on the line. So that's the best thing. Yeah, because then you're like, it's like you're rowing a boat every night together. You're like, you're out there.
Yeah,
like,
and you're in it together. It's less of someone just giving you advice.
You really bond. It's like being in a band.
Yeah,
every night there's 40 on the line, and sometimes you get hit hard. And but he was a good teacher because he didn't lose his cool, and he also told us why. And I was very inquisitive. Always ask questions.
Yeah.
Like a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Like, why do they call it this? Why is it? Why are the apples with the sweetbreads? Why is this? Why is it called a rognon? Why do you do this with kidney? And we did a lot of French food, all the butchering. And, we did a lot. We did a lot of sauce making, and I loved it. And I would come in, and I as a sous chef to him, I was like, "You go home.
Yeah.
Go home on Sunday. I got this."
Okay.
Like, I didn't want him around because I wanted to do my thing, So he was, and then I worked for Charlie. Charlie was a great teacher too, great technique, great skill, good palate, and he organized as well, organized kitchen, because River Cafe was bustling.
Yeah.
Lunch and dinner 7 days a week, brunch, noisy, hot. It's in a bar, just like a tin can. Yeah. And man, you know.
What gets you going? I'm like looking at your face and you're like getting excited. Just, talking about what is it about that energy in the kitchen?
That's just like, we're going to do it. Listen.
Well, you said adrenaline. It's like the adrenaline of it all.
The challenge, I think that, it's like, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And I'm scared. Nervous energy. Nervous, man. I get nervous when I expedite now. And I'm the owner. I get nervous, like nervous energy. Like I get excited. Like I'm looking around. I'm like, do we have this? I'm like a little computer. Like I'm checking everything. I mean, do we have?
You done anything?
Anticipate anything that can go wrong. I'm looking for.
Okay.
And it's like, and I find it.
Yeah. Well, let me say, when you're going in, like when you're going into the restaurant, what's the first one or two things that you go straight to look at to make sure that things are set up properly, because a lot of it's also, preparation.
Well, if I walk into my restaurant, the front door, I look at the top of the bar. You just, whatever you see, you're analyzing.
Okay.
You don't even know what you're looking at. It's always the owner that sees the light bulb out and the music's not on, or the air conditioning's blowing the wrong way, or there's dust over here, or there's something on the bathroom. There's been a stain on the wall over here, and like you're the only one that sees it. So, and then you look for good things. Yeah. And a good restaurateur can walk in and know whether they're having a good night or not by looking at customers. Yeah. Right. And looking at the wait staff and the energy in the room. And, sometimes you're like, you see a parking lot full of cars. I'm like, oh, I hope they're okay. Yeah. And then there's times where you're like, it's good. Yeah. So, and that's the joy of what we do. But it's hard to balance out the lifestyle for the modern day manager and chef versus the older days. The older days, we worked 6 days a week, no questions asked. No questions. You didn't, and if somebody needed you to stay, no problem, chef. You know what I mean? You didn't really ask. They told you. Yeah. I need you on a double. So-and-so cut his finger. You're like, okay, I got it. Yeah. No worries. Yeah. But, nowadays it's, more of a work lifestyle, work-life balance. There is, there's more, we used to pay shift pay. Yeah. It worked out to about $8 an hour or something like that. Yeah. We paid people $100 a day. That was it. So listen, I'm going to make $100 a day, 5 days a week or 6 days a week. Your choice. No one ever asked how many hours. Yeah. Well, the dynamics changed so much. I think, a lot of things have changed. But, it used to be good cook, a hospitable host, as long as you had people coming in, and cash flow, you could run your restaurant. But now with the rules and regulations and, just the cost of rent and everything. Built-in expenses. You didn't have HR expenses. Yeah. You didn't have printing expenses because we print menus more often. You didn't have, as I said, HR. You didn't have extra insurances. Yeah. You didn't have this, this stuff. You didn't have micros. You didn't have POS systems. They cost money. Yeah, all the technology open table platform. Reservation takes your money. People, you have all these things. And after the pandemic, you mentioned, the minimum wage went up. The demand for getting more hourly pay went up. It didn't go down. Yeah. And prices are crazy. Yeah. I mean, I'm in the restaurant business. And I go out for lunch by myself or dinner alone. It's $100-something. I'm not even drinking. Yeah. It's like, wow. If you want a good meal, it's expensive. Yeah. So, and it's the value perception too. I think certain cuisines, certain restaurants, the consumers have like a certain perceived, value. They want great food. They want a great experience, but they also want to feel like they got a value and they're not overpaying. I think that holds true and no matter what the price is and with anything, with the Rolls Royce or Mercedes or Chevy, you want to feel like you got the value or you got a trusted brand. And so the expectation is higher for certain chefs and restaurateurs. But there's also, it's interesting. I have a fine dining restaurant next to a bistro in Bernardsville, New Jersey. And the bistro doesn't take it's a tavern, doesn't take reservations. Check averages $35. The other one's $100. Same clientele. But that one, they don't have to put on makeup. They don't have to make a fuss. They don't have to think about it. They decide where to go that minute, and they walk in. There's TVs, and you get a good roast chicken, steak frites, whatever it may be. And there's something refreshing about the lack of preparation. I mean, you got to be prepared, but the lack of it's a relief to the guests that they can just come in and don't have to make an arrangement to be here, and they don't have to stay for 2 hours.
Yeah, it's not a whole evening
it's
out.
Dinner. It's a quick
and
meal.
They don't have to prepare something at home. It's just casual. They go out, and enjoy themselves.
That food package as well for takeout. Yeah. So it's an interesting model because we don't want to compete with ourselves at the higher priced one. So we kept the prices low. It's made the food better. Yeah.
Well, what are you doing to knowing that the cost to operate is going up in all the ways that you mentioned, the margins, profit are going down? What do you do to ensure, value? Are there certain things, obviously, I guess, food quality and service and the overall experience, but there's so many restaurants. I mean, the other thing too is there's so much competition. I don't know if restaurant signs are opening faster or closing faster, but you walk through so many neighborhoods, getting people to come back to your restaurant and developing, that repeat guest, is important. What do you?
Locations are important, but the better location, the higher the rent.
Yeah.
Right. So that seems to be a lot of it has to do with how you make people feel when they come in.
Yeah.
If we can, you can get 100 great Caesar salads. Right? Yeah. But can you get 100 great people serving it and telling you thank you in a proper way that makes you feel like they really like that you came in, make you feel good? That's a good neighborhood feel. That's hard to work on. Yeah. The turnover can be high in restaurants, especially the ones that aren't always busy, because the waiter's going to chase money, right? And it's a transient business. I mean, people they're not getting pensions in the restaurant business, right? I mean, maybe a union place or something, but so for a few more dollars, they'll go down the street to the shiny new object. And chefs are taught to, don't spend your whole career in one place. Work for this guy for a year and that guy for a year and this one for a year.
Which is like a new, I don't want to say newer because it's not that new, but it is a newer phenomenon, do you think, of like jumping from one kitchen to the next versus staying?
I didn't do it, but I was told that's what you should do when I was a student.
Okay.
Go here. I worked for Wilder for 2-3 years. I worked under Charlie, but then I stayed there.
Yeah.
So I didn't jump because I was a chef. I became a chef young. I did work I worked in really good places in CIA and before school. But I was a good cook. Yeah. I paid attention.
Well, talking about being a chef, and then you just mentioned kind of like when someone walks through the doors, there's always like the front of house, back of house dynamic. And what do you do in your restaurants, being, I guess a back of house guy first?
I don't see the front of house, back of house fighting anymore. And honestly, I wish I did. Yeah. I want to see it. I would like to see the tension a little bit more because they hold each other accountable. Right now, I can't understand when the chef isn't upset when the front of the house makes a mistake. You don't have to hit him with a spoon, but you should show some concern and say this needs to be fixed. And that's like a marriage. Yeah, right. You're raising kids, right? I mean, it's like, hey, listen,
holding each other accountable and raising the standards of everyone.
I don't see it enough because I think, and I have children that are adults. I'm grandpa, by the way. Last week.
Oh, congratulations!
And they worked in the restaurant business for a while, and I'm like, they were. One of my sons said, I feel like I'm babysitting. I feel like every day I got to tell people to make sure they did this. I said, that's what we do. Yeah. It's, and so, but I think that if you really want success, the pressure has to come from the manager and the chef together. Yeah. And they should be upset with each other once in a while. The kitchen drags the whole dining room and this guy's got the bar backed up and he can't see people. The manager should be upset. Yeah. There's a way to show emotion without lighting the place on fire. Yeah. And they sit down and discuss it. How are we going to fix it? Yeah. You can't fix a problem unless you realize you have a problem. Yeah. And we're always going to have problems. So tension. I don't see it enough. And younger people don't like managing other people. Yeah. Everybody wants to be the manager. Like, I'll take the pay. They're like, they don't want to do the discipline. Yeah. So that's one of those. And when they leave it to the owner, But I don't see the front back, like the old days.
Yes.
I don't see the jealousy of a cook with a waiter making more money.
Mhm.
I don't see that in my places at
all.
all.
Right.
So,
interesting.
That's good though.
Yeah. No,
but
definitely.
the top level people should be communicating more, and I'm sure they do it, and I don't see it. But
what about menu development? What's your approach to menu development? Whether you're opening up a new restaurant, you're consulting on a project. How do you?
Well, it depends on location. Depends on if you're on the water, you're not on the water, you're in a city. Price point, trends. We have a lot of signature dishes, so some of them go on. So I usually, I love writing menus.
Yeah.
But I also, like I want to put calf's liver on a menu. I'm dying to do it. And it never makes cut because it doesn't sell.
Yeah.
And there's only so much real estate in the kitchen that you can put so many dishes on, right? But I always I want to put a skate on and a calf's liver and some veal chop with sweetbreads. And I'm like, I don't want to put something on that doesn't sell. So the challenge is to get dishes that sell almost equally as well so that they're all fresh.
Yeah.
That's one way of looking at it. And I try to, I try to design my main dishes first.
Mm-hmm.
And then I try to realize what kind of byproduct will I have. Like, will I have salmon belly if I have salmon on? Yes. That's how tuna tartare.
Yeah.
All that gets created if you have, at least when I look at a menu and what am I going to do with the lobster shells? If I have a lobster dish, we should make a soup and blah, blah, blah. And then you also want to make sure there's what we call light and elegant dishes, the balance of cold and hot appetizers so that the distribution of the workflow is spread out. And then how many high wire dishes you're going to have? Like how many dishes are going to be wow factor? Maybe it's 30% where you look at it and you're like, I can't do that, but I want to learn how to do it. And how many are going to be simply good, like a Caesar salad or a steak frite, or, so that you have a balance in excitement. And also balancing how much labor goes into one dish that you can only charge.
I was going to say the labor, too, and it's also skill sets, the people that are in the kitchen, the bandwidth of the kitchen, and number of tables and food costs.
Well, listen, if you have a great line, you have good cooks, and I'm the quarterback. I don't fourth and long, we go for it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm confident. Right?
Yeah.
I'm not punting.
Yeah.
Right? We're always going to go for it. I can do more specials. I can write a more aggressive menu. I can author a better menu with a better crew. If you're down a man or you don't have a strong guy on the corners or the side, you got to write a menu that can execute a tough night. And that kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Because you want to always try to, you want to go fourth and long. You want to go. And that's the energy and the mentality of being able to do it. And if you get caught trying to do it, if you design a dish that's really wonderful and beautiful and you know what it looks like and you're having a bad night and it's going out looking like, that's a bad feeling.
Yeah.
That's that's like, and then some of the dishes that were labor intense, building a pretzel crusted crab cake like a little raft takes a lot of time. And if it's not done well, it doesn't float the boat. It doesn't matter how much you charge for it.
Yeah.
If it isn't done particularly well, and sometimes I've designed dishes that I know why I designed them. I know how the science works behind them and what goes, and it doesn't always translate when it gets passed down from a recipe book to someone reading it. It has to be taught.
Yeah.
And that's, sometimes that gets forgotten.
Yeah. You get a chance these days to go out to other restaurants, or you usually just dealing with your restaurants?
No, I go out. I try to go out. I don't always go to the fanciest or most expensive restaurants, but I dine out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like to.
What do you like to eat when you're out?
Where do I like to eat? I don't know. I like everything.
All right. I don't know. I always say, people like, they ask chefs, it's funny, they're like, oh, there's like always like some casual little, neighborhood spot. But
here's what's on. I went to Resdora.
Yes.
A couple months ago. Enjoyed that a lot. I want to go see Mark Forgione. He's on my list to go check out at Peasant. I haven't been there since he's taken over.
Yeah, that was a great restaurant.
I live in Jersey, so I'm not in the city all the time. But I do go to places. And in Florida, Buchan down in Palm Beach and a couple of places because we opened down there New Year's Eve. So I'm eating out down there. I work a lot. So, but I do like to sneak in and grab it. But sometimes I just grab a bite at the bar somewhere. And if I'm in the city, I'd go see Alfred.
Yeah.
I haven't been there in a year, but I've been to his place twice. And that's a lot for me to go. but it depends on where I am in the neighborhood, what I want to do.
Yeah.
I like John George's restaurants, Daniel's restaurants. I used to go to Brenda Dan for Christmas lunch, but that's before the pandemic. And Keller, I like all those for an occasion or a nice date. But I also I would love to go eat some of the newer places, the younger guys that I don't really know in Brooklyn or at these counters. And there's only so much time.
I know.
You know what I mean? But I'm fascinated by good food still.
That's
and you know
great.
what? It motivates you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You get excited. You see what other people are doing and, inspires you. It's great.
But even good pasta like Michael White, I want to go try his stuff.
Yeah.
It's always good.
I know.
It's great, by the way. But how many meals can you fit in?
I know it's a lot, especially when you're in the business and you have everything going on. Do you find work-life balance in our industry? It's always talking about the nights, weekends, holidays, the intensity of, being in a kitchen and just being in the business. Is there such a thing? Have you over your career focused on like ways or things to do that just kind of take you away from the business and clear your mind? Or, just is it the nature of it where you're always kind of around food and restaurants and
it's a good question. I never worried about work-life balance. I always just dove into work, and work was my life. Like, if you really like what you do, being a chef, certainly in New York City at the time I was and am, it's your job, but it's not a job.
Yeah.
This is, it's like saying a athlete or a painter or a musician or has a job.
Yeah.
You got a job, but your job is grueling. And don't think that these professional entertainers don't work hard.
No, of course.
We just happen to be working weekend. Problem with a chef is the better you get, the more work. You don't get more movies separate. You got to work more, and we take on more projects. So you're working and balancing, and you expect everyone to be at this level, but not everyone you hire is at this level, and you can't understand that. You're like, well, why don't they work this hard? And my dad was like, not everybody wants to work like that. Not everybody's obsessed with it. So there needs, I think you get a balance from when listen, the old days, we would work and go out all night.
Oh, yeah, after
come back in. I mean, I don't know how it got done. It got done. I was part of it. Now I'm in bed by 11. I'm up at 6. If I'm not at the I work at home in the mornings. If I'm not at the office table in the morning by 7, that's something. That means I'm either over traveled. I get up and I get moving. Coffee is my new happy hour, man. I'm down
there you go.
And getting things done, and then I jump in my car at noon and go to where I got to go in the restaurants, and I put 1,000 miles a week on the car. Wow. When I'm up here, when I'm in Florida, I don't.
Well, I always say, like with my work with the hospitality lines, it's not really a job; it's a lifestyle.
Right.
It's really it's all consuming, but when you're passionate about it, it doesn't just feel like
when you don't want to go to work. There's a problem.
Yeah.
No. I mean, there's days where, bad days. Don't get me wrong. And most of it's here. Luckily, my legs are in good shape and I'm in pretty good shape. And I can work and I love it. And I can open a restaurant, work 18-hour days, 4 or 5 days in a row. And I feel that like muscle. And I like it. Where I don't think a lot of people, like I'm old school. I'm like a farmer. Like I'm like, I haven't used those muscles in a while.
That's good.
That's a good day. And you get up the next morning and there's a few people that are the guys that are in the pits with you that are like, yesterday was good. Now when you get up and each day gets better when you open a place. But there's nothing like the camaraderie of putting a team together and building something that's successful.
Well, I haven't worked inside restaurants now in years, but I still, always remember it's that energy and those bonds, those relationships, and just working in that environment it builds. It's like why you call it family meal too. It's because you really do become a family with these
the
people.
Family meal. I wish. That people would really sit, my teams included, would really do family meal correctly and sit down. Again, it's another thing that gets cut out with expenses, right? Because now you got to, years ago you paid a waiter $2 an hour. Now it's $12. So to bring them in early to eat.
Yeah.
Or to fold napkins and stuff, So now they stagger them in. You have your pre-shift meeting. It's not the old days. Yeah, it was a family, but the importance of a family meal is not just nourishment; is getting to know who you're working with.
Yeah.
Because in the kitchen you get to know a little bit, but you don't really ever have a conversation, a peaceful one, with the rest of the team, and find out. I got to tell you something. David Burke and Donatello. Or was it? We had a great runner named Babu. He's a little guy, and he would carry stuff up and down the stairs. And we were always yelling, not yelling at him, but Babu, I need a runner, I need a run, it's like, and you know what? It's like coaching. There's different coaching styles, right? You can be loud in coaching, and you can be somewhat quieter in coaching, but the results can be the same. Yeah. It's excitement and enthusiasm, and it's not meant to be taken personally if somebody's raising their voice. You need to be loud in the kitchen. Yes. Kitchens are noisy. Mm-hmm. So Babu was like, we said yell at him, but not yell at him like disrespectful. It's like, get your ass down here. We need you now, Babu.
Yeah.
One day he says, Chef Burke, can I take a picture with you? He goes, I'm like, yeah, sure. He goes, my daughter's teacher doesn't believe I work for you.
Wow.
I said, what do you mean? She goes, my daughter goes to the gifted and talented high school or some high school of science or something in the Bronx, like the best high school in New York City. And I said, so your daughter goes to this high school? He goes, yeah. And I got to tell you, I was almost crying. Here's this guy working his ass off, probably 2 jobs, carrying trays up and down, making good money as a waiter in New York. Puts his kid to the best high school.
Incredible.
And, I wish I would have known that. Ever since I told me that, I've always looked at him differently with admiration. Yeah. And I always think about, what? These people have kids. These people have families, and they're the king of their house. Yeah. And here they are in this restaurant, and the work is hard. Yeah. Right? Just because you're the chef or the manager's the manager. Yeah. Everybody there is the boss of something somewhere, and they're there to help you. And the fact that he had to prove to this woman, the teacher, the professor, I guess, that he worked with me. We took a bunch of pictures. That was a very touching moment for me to sit back and realize, you know what? Maybe we should get to know who works for us a little bit.
Yeah. No, it's so true. Everyone comes to work with their own lives and stories, and, you have no idea.
Right, everyone's going through shit.
Just gotta ask. But it's fascinating. Outside of, you've done so much just like in addition to, being in the restaurants. Television, you're a chef that, from the early days have, been on TV. You've expanded into different types of products and everything. How have you approached that as part of, I guess, like, the David Burke brand, the company? How do you find new opportunities? How do you decide? I'm sure you get all different types of offers. Like, how do you decide, okay, this TV part is a very important component of my brand, the work I do. Maybe we should start, branding or having this product line. How do you approach that from like a business?
I've never approached it. They'd approached me.
Okay.
My first cookbook, they came to me. I developed the cake pops, of course. I patented a couple things. I'm very creative with designing dishes and food and products. And listen, I designed a bacon clothesline. I should have patented that clothesline. These things I should have done. But when you're in the trenches doing what you do, you're in the trenches doing what you do. And you look at even a cake pop, it's hard to patent food, hard to trademark it, But, you start working on something else. TV, I'd love to do more. I would I don't have an agent per se, and I wouldn't mind finding one to get on a show because I'm good on TV. Yeah. Because I get the knowledge and I'm whimsical enough and I'm well-traveled and when you know your product and you're comfortable in front of a camera, you can teach. And if you can teach and have some fun with it, it's great.
So just like working hard, being creative, not chasing it, letting, your work speak for yourself and people.
Well, I think I've been fortunate that way where people come to me with opportunities and deals. And sometimes, sometimes I've made some mistakes in my life. Don't get me wrong, some big ones. And so you got to watch that. What's the best use of my time? Right. And what are we looking at the end goal? When I was young, I was fortunate to be young and successful. a couple great kids, 3 great kids, worked through all of that stuff, moved around, had built a nice business, lost it, you know, a difficulty with partners, built it back again, this and that and the other, you know, you go through the phases. You know, one of the things I learned during the pandemic too, so I had been home. I'd never, since I've been a teenager, I've never cooked at home.
Really?
No, even though, you know, because I was working.
Yeah.
I was working all the time and I went out to eat. So I started cooking at home. I had a puppet. I had this puppet my ex-girlfriend gave me because I wanted to do a cooking show with a puppet. And the puppet was going to be like a wise guy. Yeah. Like he was going to be like, he was going to like put down like, he would be like putting down other chefs and I'd be sticking up for him. So, you know, it was funny. It really still is. Or he could be educational for, you do a kid's show, or he would be asking the questions. Why don't we use extra virgin olive oil instead of canola? Or why do you use butter instead of, you know? And all of a sudden you had this. And it was hilarious. But I started cooking at home and I'm like, I forgot how good of a cook I was. Yeah. Because I would, you know, I wouldn't even, chefs don't follow recipes. And even with pastry, not necessarily that much, but. And then, you know, we start whipping things together. Yeah, I'd go buy a bunch of stuff and at this market and I just put the camera on, start cooking. And sometimes they're like, hey, let's try this. Why not? Because, you know, and people at home are like, well, I don't know how to make sauces or I'm afraid. Don't be afraid. Just start cooking. You know, I mean, I started painting down in, I had this condo down in Florida above my restaurant. I've always wanted to paint. We talk about life-work balance. I said, well, if you don't have the canvases and the paint at your disposal and you get that rainy day where you want to paint, you're not going to go to the store. So I bought a bunch of canvases, a bunch of paints, and I have I'm decorating the condo. I brought some art from my house up north. And then I'm like, you know, I'm going to paint my own stuff for this house. Who cares? And I wrote, I painted a lyric from a song on the entrance of my condo the day before my grandson was born. And what came to mind was Jim Morrison, hello, I love you, won't you tell me your name? And I just wrote that on a canvas in different colors. And that's the entrance of the foyer of the condo. And I wrote the doors on the bottom. But that was like a welcome letter to my grandson, but also a welcome letter to anyone who walked into the condo. And people are like, wow, that's great. Where'd you get that? I'm like, can't tell you. But you know what? Talk about just something that relaxes you. And I'm no painter, don't get me wrong. I'm a pretty good designer of a dish. But if it's no good, then guess what? I wasted
That's what I was just going to say. You know, as long as, you know, it's about the fulfillment and the enjoyment that you get. And you know, sometimes it comes out.
It's relaxing. It's a little bit of a challenge. I got my boat license during the pandemic. I grew up near the Jersey Shore and I live in a marina in Atlantic Islands. And, you know, I'm like, if I don't do it now, I never will. So I studied for the test. I got it online. Then I had to go down to the marina.
That's
you know, and I jump on a boat. If you can't relax on the water, we're screwed.
I may have to paint while I'm on a boat to relax. But,
so there's ways to get relaxation. Nature is a big thing. Music and nature. I drive a lot, so I can relax driving. But, you know, like, you know, people, when I'm in Florida, are like, you must love Florida. I'm like, nah, too sunny. It's like, I want some drama. I want some leaves and some wind and trees and all that. So I like to be in nature.
That's nice.
And I love music and I like to read. And I wish I could read. I got so many cookbooks, like from way back.
I just started audiobooks, which I have found I've been able to, you know, do it rather than sit down and have the focus.
One of my, I got 1,500 cookbooks. Wow. And none of them over the last decade. So these are older ones.
What an incredible collection.
And you know what? I just need to get down there and start opening them with like art culinaires. And so I got a text from the son of a famous chef today, whose father passed away. And he wants to do something. And he goes, are you interested in doing a dinner with and I said, let me look at the art culinaires and I'll see what some of your dad's stuff is. He's a well-known chef, Greg Kuntz's son. And I'm like, you know what, let me see what we some of the things he inspired me by. And you know, I want to dig in. But reading about food and the chemistry, the anthropology of eating and the geography and some of the religious stuff, I find it interesting because it gives you more knowledge and helps you with decision making. You know, I go out to an Indian restaurant now or a Middle Eastern one, and you try food and the elevated versions of it, like, all of a sudden, like, man, that was good.
Yeah.
Where, so there's always something new with food, which is an incredible canvas for us to work on because it's so not boring.
Yeah.
It's hard. Fulfilling. We eat really well.
Yeah. No, listen, I mean, that's what, traveling, but then just being in New York, you just have the most incredible cuisine from around the globe, people doing it at all different levels and all different ways and all different atmospheres. It really does add a lot of like texture to life. And like what you're saying, even reading about it, the chemistry of it, the history of it, there's so much there to really unpack.
Yeah.
It's so much more than just like, putting something in your mouth and chewing. There's
well, when you realize, listen, I've been
to
cooking a long time, right? I got bees in my yard a couple of years ago because I'm like, because I wanted to do a TV show. I wanted to do like an apprentice style show in my house where I had a couple students living with me for 6 weeks, and I'm like, let's get some honey here. There's bakeries, there's fisheries, there's all that down there, and we'd have all these excursions anyway. So I started not making honey, but harvesting it. It's amazing. Like I mean, the eating, even though I didn't make it, it's the bees are crazy. Yeah, it's just a beautiful process, and we don't really know that. Even though I'm a really good chef, right? But I'm like, and I take honey for granted. I don't take it for granted anymore. I was like, I'm going to give all this away as gifts. I'm like, I'm keeping
and
it.
It's part of so much. I mean, the pollination of everything, you need bees,
when, some of the TV shows that are out there, like when the bear came out, everyone's like, oh, did you see the bear? And I don't really watch all the shows. I barely watch if I'm on because of time. And I watched it and I thought, you know what? I watched a couple seasons, binge watched it. And I was like, you know what? I think people understanding the chaos. Yeah. Right. And the chef going home at night, biting on a pencil and waking up at 4 a.m. and writing his notes down and, taking a subway home and having a fight with his girlfriend and pounding it and getting a lot, people understand putting a steak on a plate is not putting on a steak on a plate at the home. You know what I mean? So there's a lot more to everything. And people are like, does that really happen? I said, that's nothing. I said, that's nothing. I said, there's a fire in the back. I said, and as you get a little older, you've seen it all. So you kind of handle some of the drama that comes at you. But there's a lot that has landed on the chef's lap, meaning mentoring young men and women with their personal problems. Juggling the numbers. Forget the cooking. The cooking is like therapy for us, right? Being able to execute without waste, right? Designing dishes that stay trendy, making sure the qualities and everything is seasoning, and making sure you can staff a kitchen properly. And it's hard to staff people. And then when you're not, when you have a slow couple of weeks in summer, you got to cut some hours. People are like, well, I might have to quit. And the loyalty is very, very thin.
I think people do bring so much of their life to the workplace in this industry as well. And it's such a people business and you're working in high intensity situations, so close to each other. And then, like you said, all the other things that, the food costs and the regulations, and there's a lot you're juggling.
The Board of Health. The Board of Health is its own business.
I know. But with that, you've also found time like NYC Tourism Convention. You were the co-chair of the culinary or the restaurant committee. I know you've worked with different charities and everything. Can you just talk quickly about like how you have viewed your duty or your believed duty, or just like your enjoyment of, volunteering and being part of these types of organizations that, are kind of restaurant industry, adjacent?
When you have the ability to help feed people, raise money because of your brand, and it takes you one night to raise 40, 50, 60, or be part of raising $1 million, it's almost an obligation, right? And I think that because we're fortunate, chefs get called on a lot. We saw that in 9/11 for sure, but even before that, and Sandy, and many other things, and tributes. But we feed people. We have a staff that can help feed people. We have vendors that will donate food, and if we can do a dinner where you get a bunch of big names chefs in there and people willing to pay for that meal, it's hard to say no for an extra night of work, right? although we work a lot.
Yeah.
It's kind of goes with the territory to a certain degree. Unless, and then you got to learn how to say no.
Yeah.
I remember Drew Nearpont telling me, he goes, Burke, you got to learn how to say no.
Yeah.
You can't say yes to every deal, everything, every this and that. And, Drew and I are friends. And, but yeah, you can't do everything, right? But you should pick some, choose some, and try to help the charities that you think are doing a good job. I was on the board of Table in New Jersey for 20 years, a wonderful charity, and 95% of the money went to the right cause. Wow. So that kind of stuff is good. And like I said, if I have the time and I can do, and it's also for us, that's one of the times we get to see other chefs that not under pressure, right? It's kind of social for us to get out and
I think it's been incredible. Things. I mean, you look at it at these events, like chefs are, it's not new, but it's like the rock stars, people really connect. That's what I always think with this show with Hospitality and Politics. Obviously we have a big audience of people within the industry, but I hear from so many people that watch, listen, wherever they get the show, and they're outside of the industry, and they're really just kind of captivated by these stories because they connect to them on different levels.
The chef industry, and I don't know if there's another built-in respect. I can go to a restaurant in another state and have a good meal, and the manager comes over and said, the meal's on us, chef. The chef he's been a fan of yours. He reads your books. He said you've helped him a lot.
Incredible.
He follows your Instagram. And I'm like, that's just like a nice thing, It's like, wow. Or he's not here tonight. He's pissed off he isn't, or the chef, we're just happy you came and joined us. And I'm like, this is amazing. And within the people we know of each other too, there's also this kind of gesture of graciousness and respect for people that have kind of helped pave the way for what is now known as what American cuisine is known for. And there's something really cool about that. I don't know if carpenters do that. I don't think a carpenter shows up in another carpenter's house and says, listen, I built a new gate for you.
Listen, I could speak to you for another hour. I really appreciate you having this conversation, just all you've done.
I enjoy it.
It's great. Chef, restaurateur, David Burke, thanks for coming on the show. I'm Andrew Ridgie. This is Hospitality and Politics, powered by the New York City Hospitality Alliance, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.